After putting some serious hours into World vs. World, I have come up with a summary of my thoughts based off of what it would be like if I were a new player and this was my first impression. And holy I absolutely love this game mode. It is so much fun. There are so many things that I love about this game mode that it just keeps me wanting to play more. And now, having said that, of course, there are some things that I didn't necessarily enjoy, but this is why I believe World vs. World may become my new favorite game mode in Guild Wars 2, and why you should give it a shot. To get right out of the gate, let's go ahead and talk about some of the things that I didn't necessarily enjoy, because this list is significantly shorter. Okay, so the first thing that I disliked really about World vs. World is the amount of running. Just the amount of land travel, going to where all the action is. It just, sometimes it really does break that kind of like immersion. You're just playing a running simulator at that point. Now, I had initially played World vs. World for the very first time a couple years ago to really just unlock my Warclaw. That was my objective. And I can only imagine what it's like for a new player getting into the game mode who hasn't earned their Warclaw yet, running around on foot while everyone else is literally sprinting on these giant cats. That's not to say that veterans don't notice these players that don't have the Warclaw, and there's almost kind of like a quiet agreement that, hey, you don't have your Warclaw, it's not a good look to just go out and murk you, especially when they can easily catch up to you and down you. However, for the new player experience, getting to where all the action is a hike, and I would have honestly been lost if I didn't already have my Warclaw. It was more obnoxious than it was more of a strong dislike. The second thing I didn't really like, or I should say I found issue with, was sometimes finding the commanders. Now, I've told you guys many a time that I don't get a whole heck of a lot of time to sit down and play Guild Wars 2 as much as I would like to. So when I do sit down, I want to make sure that the time I'm spending is worthwhile. And especially with how World vs. World goes and finding a commander, it can seriously change your entire outlook on the game mode if you can find a group to run with. And for those new players who may be watching, typically we look for commanders on these maps as they are where a large group of allied players are, and they are capturing towers, they are assaulting keeps. They are essentially doing the main function of World vs. World, where one, you can run into other large balls of enemies where you have to attack each other, or they could just be capturing these nodes, which gives you a whole bunch of World vs. World experience and helps you move that ticket down the line. I did find sometimes, and it could just be that I am not on when my particular server was really running World vs. World shenanigans. Quick tip with that though, something I did find out afterwards was that if you join the Discord related to your particular server, you can go ahead and find when these groups are running, you can find other players to run with. That did help me out a little bit down the line. And the last thing that I absolutely, and it's something that you would see in PvP as well, but something that really just irked me was just being cheesed. And no, I don't mean like the sweet Wisconsin cheese that you would get. No, I mean more so that you get absolutely obliterated by some either Daredevil or Harbinger that is essentially just doing basic attacks, but you don't have enough condition cleanse to deal with it, or in that sense, you've burned your condition cleanses and you just get murked and you can't really there's no counterplay. Now, of course, I understand that if I'm in a multiple player versus player experience where there's a group of 5 enemies and they all jump on top of me, I get that. That's my own mistake. I decided to be there at that single time. However, when it's a more 1 versus 1 experience and essentially I just get ripped to shreds because too many conditions, it's a pain. And I guess I would say that it's more so of a growing pain than that, because it's definitely made me change my build and make me change my way of thinking, especially when approaching other characters and other enemies, because I'm a little bit more calculated. I know that my particular build is good against X, Y, and Z, but it may not be good against A, B, and C. Okay, so those are the things that I ran into issue with that I didn't necessarily like. The things that I did like, however, I will say are numerous, but I've condensed them down to a handful of things that really made me enjoy this game mode. So the first is the sieges. I love sieging castles and towers and all of that. It is without a doubt one of the best experiences that I've had in this game mode. It's a lot of fun just building up a catapult and launching it. I even get to launch a couple of them at the walls. It's a fun experience, and especially when you have the supply to help your allies out, and then you got to defend the catapults, and then when you charge in, there might be a little bastion of enemy players. It's a lot of fun, and that's something that I absolutely loved. I love the sieges immediately, and I didn't even get to see like the trebuchets or even, for example, the siege golems. I didn't even get to see any of those. It was just catapults and ballistas, and it was a lot of fun. Arrow carts, I think, is what it was. But it's something that I thoroughly enjoyed, and it really does make it seem like you are in a war room. It's really, really a lot of fun. The next part that I really enjoyed was actually solo roaming. Now, if you followed my channel for a little bit, you know that I play quite a bit of player versus player, and I'm decently, we'll say, capable with my elementalist and my particular builds.
Are you sure about that?
And I love actually being out in a 1 versus 1 or 1 versus 2 circumstance where you have to take on multiple enemies all on your own, or you're essentially opening this Wild West to 1 versus 1 duels. And it's fun in that sense, is that it actually gets like my heart racing. Like I shake a little because it's so exciting for me, and I haven't experienced that in a very, very long time, and not since my World of Warcraft days. But what's a lot of fun specifically about this is just that there's always that chance that you could die, and it's not like you get to respawn and, you know, attack from a nearby camp. You got to start all the way over. So you're extra careful with the way that you are moving your character and the way that you are playing, which I think is actually perfect. I loved it. That was a lot of fun. I even tried to take down a Deadeye and a Firebrand at the same time, and nearly got them all before their allies came and essentially ripped me to shreds. Now, the next part that I really liked wasn't necessarily something that I experienced all the time, but essentially grouping up with a large bunch of allies and trying to attack a bunch of enemies. And this only happened like once or twice, but every time that I get a chance to, I try to join in and try to assist my team. I'm on Eridon Terrace, so we're with Gates of Madness this week. And it's interesting is because even though I know that I'm probably not pushing out a ton of damage, I'm still pushing out a little bit. And the idea is that with all of us together, we're able to take down a large group of enemies. And it's a lot of fun. It is just something that I found myself always looking for whenever we join the commander tag, or I'm looking for those types of things in the Discord. It's a lot of fun. So the next thing that I really enjoyed was actually something that was a bit, I will say, questionable. And I say that in the sense is that the game is designed to be like on site. We attack and we kill enemies on site. But there's a handful of times where we're watching 1 versus 1 duels and I'm standing right next to enemies. There's enemy players that we can fight and we can attack and we can kill right now, and we vastly outnumber them. However, no one does it. Everyone just lets enemy players just attack each other and watch in almost this like gladiatorial 1 versus 1 duels, which is something that I really enjoy, especially seeing in a PvP sense. And I feel like a lot of players understand this as well, is that when you are playing in this mode, it is quite obvious that you are viciously outnumbered. But if you're in a 1 versus 1 duel and you're not necessarily ganked if you beat them, or if you lose, they let you heal up and kind of rejoin. So it adds this level of camaraderie, which I think is a ton of fun. And it's something that I actually really, really enjoyed from the world versus world experience, is that it's not just about the game, is the only way I can put it. It's not just about the game. And lastly, the thing that I really enjoyed probably the most was the sense of teamwork. Now, yes, I was looking for these commander tags all across the world, but when I didn't, I would find just a small little group of 4 or 5 players, and we would all just be roaming together. And we'd be capturing camps, we would attack an enemy player or a group of enemy players, and it was just always something almost like fun. We were able to capture a tower on our own with only a couple of us there. It really adds this sense of like, even though we might not be in the same guild, we're still able to work together to achieve a common goal. And that's something that I really, really enjoyed. It took this, you don't need to group up, but you're still grouped up sense, and it just made it a lot of fun. And it's something that I've thoroughly enjoyed thoroughly, and I will definitely be coming back for more. All in all, let's talk about like my overall thoughts. So World versus World is definitely going to be a game mode that I'm going to be playing a lot more often. Now, yes, I do know that it's technically a bit slower in the gear progression, or if I were, for example, going for a legendary or anything like that, it does take a little bit longer. I think actually a decent amount longer. And then on top of that, if I wanted like the legendary backpack, it's gonna be a lot. I'm not in that sense focusing just on getting the gear. I'm focusing just on the fun. And I think that's something that definitely should be spoken about, is that yes, World v World may not be quote unquote optimal as far as getting your gear as fast as humanly possible, but it's a ton of fun, and it really makes you want to play better and play smarter and come up with new builds and research new builds. Guildgen has tons and tons of builds on this particular website that have helped me out, at least getting started and what I should pay attention to. And then these builds really just set you up for your best chance of success. And I'm going to have a follow-up of a couple of things that I learned, which is definitely going to, I hope, help some new players getting into World versus World and get into this wonderful game mode and have a ton of fun. I understand why players play this game mode so often and why it's one of the house favorites. It is a blast, and it is something that I'm going to continue doing. If you want to know the community's favorite parts of this game, click this video here. Hopefully we can give you a little bit of a leaning edge towards what we think is the best game in the MMO market. As always, stay caffeinated, folks.